Why did I realize something was off but not try harder to get her to talk about her troubles on the phone? Why did I just think she would talk about it eventually? Maybe if I had listened, this wouldn't have happened.
Stop it, it's not your fault. I'm to blame too. Maybe I pressured her too much with work. Even if not, I was there and should have noticed and supported her.
My best friend had taken her own life. I was nearly crushed by regret. At the funeral, my husband felt the same. Whenever we spoke, we only blamed ourselves. After the funeral, I went to my best friend's parents to apologize for not doing anything when I noticed he was off during our phone call. My husband also apologized to them for not being able to deal with her, even though he was always nearby during work. My best friend's parents told us it wasn't our fault and asked us not to blame ourselves. Even hearing that, my husband couldn't raise his head for 5 minutes. As the funeral ended and my husband and I were about to leave, my father stopped me.
There's mail at home for you. It might be something important, so don't forget to take it with you.
Why did my best friend send it to my parents' house instead of mine? Feeling uneasy, I decided to stop by my parents' house alone on the way home. What arrived was an envelope, slightly bulging, indicating several pages of a letter inside. With trembling hands, I cut open the envelope to reveal its contents. The letter was folded in 3, comprising about 4 pages. Opening it, the first page simply read, "Please read this without your husband finding out," in large letters. Puzzled, I moved on to the second page. At the top of the second page, in large letters, was what seemed to be the title of the letter. Just by reading that title, I could guess what the rest of the letter contained. If I was right, it would contain something dreadful. My hands shook, but I gathered my courage to continue reading. What followed was an astonishing truth. I am Emily, a 27-year-old office worker. I'm currently on maternity leave just after giving birth. My husband, David, is 6 years older and owns 3 restaurants. He was initially also an office worker like me, but he suddenly decided to quit his job during a relationship.
I've always wanted to own a restaurant. I thought if I get older or married, I wouldn't be able to take such risks. It's easier to bounce back if I fail while I'm young. So, can I quit my job?
At that time, David was 29, wanting to act before turning 30. I was only 23, more inclined to support and encourage my dreamer husband than to hold realistic views. Many people in their 30s and 40s just drag along in their jobs, right? It's better to go all out on what you want to do now. Just make sure if it doesn't work out, you find a new job and don't mope around, okay?
Don't talk like I'm bound to fail.
Encouraged by me, David quit his job and gained experience in a friend's restaurant while preparing to open his own. His concentration and action towards the goal were impressive, and in just 2 years, he was nearly ready to open his restaurant. However, there was one persisting issue. Can't you find anyone yet?
Yeah, it's hard to find experienced people willing to work for a not yet existent restaurant.
Isn't it okay to wait until the restaurant opens? Is it a bad time to post for staff?
That would be too late. If we can't find anyone by the opening, the restaurant might not operate smoothly.
David had been advised by his mentor in the restaurant business that securing an experienced right-hand person before starting was crucial. The restaurant owner also has to do some work outside the restaurant. Also, there are critical tasks in the restaurant that you can't just leave to part-timers. It would be too much for my husband, David, to handle all by himself. So, it seems wise to secure at least one person he can confidently leave in charge. However, finding someone experienced enough to run the place is no easy feat. David was racking his brain over this every day. One day, I stumbled upon a post from an old friend, Lisa, on social media. My old friend Lisa worked at a restaurant for almost 10 years. So I tried sending her a message. To my surprise, the response was positive, and it led to an introduction to David.
Are you really willing to join us?
Yes, I can help with setting up and eventually take charge of some aspects, right?
Actually, I'll be relying on you since you have way more experience than I do.
I've always wanted to own a restaurant too, so getting involved in building and managing a restaurant will be great experience for me.
Even with 10 years in the industry, you can't go so low?
It's more about the money than experience. The pay in this industry isn't great, so saving up to start a business is tough. Besides, setting up a restaurant costs a fortune, and with my track record, just as an employee. So not having enough savings means you can't borrow what you need. It's ironic. People like David who've worked corporate jobs have more credit and capital, so they often start businesses before those who've been in the industry longer.
The restaurant business is tough, huh?
Exactly. That's why getting involved from the ground up is a valuable experience for me.
My experience in the industry is limited, so having Lisa around is a huge help. Looking forward to working with you.
This solved the staffing issue. With the problem resolved, David's restaurant setup progressed rapidly, and soon it was up and running. Lisa's experience compensated for David's lack of it, helping the business grow steadily. But David seemed troubled. Hey, Lisa, the restaurant is thriving, but David looks down. He won't talk about it. Is there an issue at the restaurant?
An issue? I don't think so. But maybe he's just exhausted from the workload and pressure. He's been nonstop since we opened, right? Also, he took out a loan of about $100,000 to start the business, right? There's the repayment. And even though things are going well now, the fear of sales dropping is real. Wouldn't it be weirder if he seemed totally fine?
I see. It's his first time as an entrepreneur, so maybe he's feeling the grind.
Exactly. That's why, Emily, you need to support David's mental.
I understood Lisa's point. As a new entrepreneur, David faces pressures I can't comprehend as a corporate employee. I can't assist him in his work like Lisa can. So, I make sure he can relax at home, ensuring he has nothing to do and can immediately take a shower after work. That's about all I can do, but it seems my small acts of kindness have reached him, and he gradually recovered his energy. As David felt better, the restaurant prospered even more. Good things continued, and 3 years after starting the restaurant, we got married, and 3 years later, we had our daughter, Amy. Everything seemed smooth. But that was only on the surface. Behind the scenes, things were not going well. My daughter brought me happy days, but David is starting to lose his energy again. He didn't talk to me the last time he felt down, and I doubt he will this time, but I asked him about his recent mood anyway. Recently, you seem down. Is there a problem at the restaurant? Surprisingly, David shared the reason for his gloom.
Actually, a new restaurant opened up nearby. It's fancier and more stylish than ours. It's like an upgraded version of our place.
So, they're taking your customers?
Yo, they've been open for 3 months, and their momentum hasn't slowed at all. They're attracting even more customers. If our sales keep dropping, we might not sustain the business, and I've only paid off about half of my loan.
I regretted asking about his troubles. I wanted to know, but there's nothing I can do to win back the customers lost to the competitor. All I can do is nod and be a sounding board for David's complaints and worries. I understand that I can't help with his job. Even so, wondering if there was anything I could do, I reached out to Lisa. Again? Things haven't been great at the restaurant lately, have they? David told me. Is there anything I can do?
Probably not much. Maybe save on the cost of one part-timer by helping out at the restaurant.
I can't help at the restaurant because of Amy.
Right? That's why I said there isn't much. David is bustling to get the restaurant back on track, so he'll probably be fine. Please keep supporting his mind like you've been doing.
Got it. Then I leave the business support to you, Lisa. Take care of David, please.
Sure, I got it. Leave it to me.
6 years since David started the restaurant. Lisa and I had gone from friends to best friends. I could consult her about anything regarding David, and she would advise me. I've sought her advice on issues with David, and her guidance has always been spot on. If she says David will turn the restaurant around, then I trust it will be okay. I decided to follow my best friend's advice and continue supporting David's mental. Months later, as Lisa predicted, David managed to revive the restaurant. It was more like fortune favored him, though. Did the restaurant that was stealing customers from David's place close down? It was doing well, wasn't it?
Our new menu was a hit. We managed to win back the customers. The other place got scared off by my skills and retreated early.
A single menu change doesn't just flip the situation, right? Maybe they moved because they were more successful than expected, to a location with better conditions and more space.
That's because they were intimidated by my skills. Watch, the other stores will start fleeing too.
Yeah, I get it. Looking forward to it. With the competition gone, David's restaurant sales rebounded. In fact, several other eateries around him closed down. With fewer restaurants nearby, his business saw even greater growth. In these times, it's not unusual for restaurants to close. However, David took this coincidence as validation, boasting, "See, just as I said. This area is practically my territory now, the David Empire. No one can compete with me." He was getting carried away. When people get too cocky, it often leads to failure, and I was worried he might face a harsh reality soon. But his restaurant continued to thrive. Riding high on success, David was completely swept up in enthusiasm.
It's going so well. I'm thinking of opening a second location. I plan to leave Lisa in charge there mostly.
Have you discussed this with Lisa?
Yo, we talked, and she's on board.
I was worried because Lisa has mentioned wanting her own place someday, so I thought she might leave.
I plan to have Lisa help us for the long haul. I won't let her go.
Hearing about the second location, I was amazed at how carried away David was getting, but knowing that Lisa would be in charge blew away my exasperation, and I wholeheartedly supported the idea. The second location was completed quickly. With experience in creating a successful business, Lisa quickly made the second location a popular spot. With the second restaurant thriving, David's confidence soared even further, bordering on recklessness.
Now that I've established the David Empire around the second location, I'm thinking of changing things up and opening a bar. Not just any bar, but one with an upscale vibe, exclusive, by reservation or referral only.
Isn't that a bit too cocky? Just deciding to open a bar like that, as if it's so easy?
Don't worry. Everything I do turns out great.
David laughed with full confidence. If I weren't his family, such arrogance might have been unbearable. But I knew of all the struggles he had overcome since opening the first restaurant. Having overcome those challenges, I felt he deserved to ride this wave of success. I decided not to interfere with the bar's opening. The bar, being smaller in scale, was completed even more effortlessly than the second restaurant. I've never been to a high-end bar before, so I asked my husband to show me the new place. "Isn't the bar ready? Show it to me before it opens."
What? The bar? Oh, no, I can't do that. I can't even tell you where it is.
Why not? You showed me the first and second locations before they opened.
Didn't I mention the bar's concept is an upscale hideaway? I want it to be exclusive, accessible only to people I know, like company CEOs, or at least directors.
Are you saying I can't enter because I'm poor?
It's not like that. I don't think you'd leak the location, but you never know how information might slip out. I just don't want to take any small risk that could compromise the concept.
Fine, but at least show me some pictures of the interior.
Okay, I'll take some pictures next time.
While I wanted to see the bar, I understood that accidentally leaking any information could ruin the concept, and I wouldn't want to bear that responsibility. Reluctantly, I backed off, but it still bothered me. When feeling like this, venting to a close friend is the best remedy. Lisa, you know where the new bar is, right?
Yo, well, I need to know for work, in case of emergencies.
It bothers me that I'm the only one out of the loop. Come on, just tell me secretly.
No way. Absolutely not. Emily, you don't need to know.
All right. No need to get mad. While talking on the phone, I sensed a different vibe from Lisa than usual. However, if she had any issues, she would bring them up herself. Since she didn't, I assumed it wasn't the time yet. Lisa has always listened to my worries and complaints about David. If she has any problems, I will listen to her fully. But that conversation ended up being our last. Days later, Lisa took her own life at home. A family photo was found in her pocket, and another lay on the floor. The picture on the floor was crumpled, so she probably clutched it until the last second. At Lisa's funeral, I was overwhelmed with regret. Why did I realize something was off but not try harder to get her to talk about her troubles on the phone? Why did I just think she would talk about it eventually? Maybe if I had listened, this wouldn't have happened.
Stop it, it's not your fault. I'm to blame too. Maybe I pressured her too much with work. Even if not, I was there and should have noticed and supported her.
Whenever we spoke, we only blamed ourselves. After the funeral, I apologized to Lisa's parents for not noticing her distress during our call. David also apologized to them for not being able to deal with her, even though he was always nearby during work.
Lisa always said she wanted her own place. So when David put her in charge of the second location, she was thrilled, almost fulfilling her dream. Please don't apologize. Her decision wasn't because of work.
Don't blame yourself, Emily. We, her parents, should have noticed any changes first. You used to play with Lisa a lot in elementary school, right? She would be happy you came today.
David couldn't lift his head, even when Lisa's parents urged him to, staying bowed for about 5 minutes. Though told not to blame myself, it's hard not to feel responsible, especially since I spoke to Lisa just days before her death. After the funeral, as my husband and I were about to leave, my father called out to me. It wasn't unusual for him to attend the funeral since Lisa and I were childhood friends and our homes were close. But it was strange to see him with a troubled expression, not one of sadness or loneliness. I had David go back to the car first, and I listened to my father.
Emily, there's a letter for you from Lisa at the house. It might be something important, so don't forget to take it with you.
It wasn't strange for Lisa to send mail to my parents' house since she knew their address. But she also knew mine. Why would she send it to my parents' house instead of mine? If she had something to say, a call would suffice, or she could have given it to David. Feeling uneasy, I decided to visit my parents' house alone. Sorry, I'm going to my parents' place alone. You go ahead. Dad will give me a ride back.
What? Weren't you planning to stop by your mother's to pick up Amy?
Well, you know, Lisa was my childhood friend, right? Thinking about all the memories, I just didn't want to leave this place. And, oh yeah, my parents and I, we all knew Lisa well since she was little, right? So, I wanted to reminisce about the old times with them.
I see. Maybe you should stay the night then.
Yeah, I think I will. I waved goodbye to David's car and then got into my father's car to head to my parents' house. Arriving home, my mother handed me the letter that Lisa had sent. I didn't know what it contained. I went to my old room in my parents' house to check the contents alone. What arrived was an envelope, slightly bulging, indicating several pages of a letter inside. With trembling hands, I cut the edge of the envelope with scissors. Upon cutting it open, photos and a USB drive fell out. But I decided to read Lisa's letter first. The letter was folded in 3, containing about 4 pages. The first page had "Please read this without your husband finding out" written in large letters. Puzzled, I moved on to the second page. At the top of the second page, in large letters, was what seemed to be the title of the letter. Just by reading that title, I could guess what the rest of the letter contained. It must contain something dreadful. My hands began to shake, but I mustered the courage to continue reading. The letter contained an astonishing truth. After reading it and knowing the truth, I considered pretending ignorance and fleeing from my husband. But if David realized that I knew the truth, it could put both me and my daughter in danger. Also, if I were to divorce, I might lose custody of my daughter. Knowing the risks, I resolved to confront David. I spent the night at my parents' house and returned home the next day. When I arrived around noon, David was preparing to leave.
You're back.
Where are you going?
I'm heading to Lisa's place. There are some documents there needed for the restaurant. I've got her parents' permission to pick them up.
To Lisa's house. Take me with you.
No, I already told her parents I'd be going alone. And there are some documents that shouldn't be seen by anyone outside the restaurant staff. I'll go by myself.
Knowing the truth, I could tell my husband was lying. I had been deceived by David, but knowing the facts beforehand, I could easily see the other side of his mind. As he insisted on going alone, I saw him off at the entrance. It seemed I had to act quickly. Once he was out of sight, I too left the house. I arrived at Lisa's apartment building. Standing at the entrance, I heard noises inside, like someone rummaging through things. The door was unlocked, so I quietly entered. In the living room, David, unaware of my presence, was frantically flipping through files he had pulled from a shelf. You didn't find what you were looking for, did you?
Whoa, you scared me.
Startled by my voice, he dropped the files, scattering the restaurant's documents all over the floor.
Damn, it's you. I told you not to come.
While gathering the documents, he complained, but then he paused, remembering my words.
Did you say I wouldn't find what I was looking for?
I felt like I was seeing a different person in my husband. His suspicion towards me clearly heightened. But his heightened suspicion didn't matter. I was there to tell David the truth. So I spoke openly and honestly. Lisa sent a letter to my parents' house. It had everything about what you've been doing these past 6 years since you started the restaurant.
What? A letter? It mentioned me. What did it say?
He seemed to be probing how much the letter revealed. Unfortunately for him, it revealed everything. Lisa had told me all. You've become like a collaborator with the gangbang, haven't you?
So, you know everything, huh?
Yes, starting from when those gangbang guys came demanding protection money when you first opened the shop.
Damn it. So you know it all.
But you stood your ground and refused to pay at that time, right? Nowadays, the gangbang can't be as brazen as before due to stricter law enforcement.
That's right. But that was the beginning of our involvement.
You first turned to the gangbang when a competing store opened near ours, right?
Yo, they came by again around that time. After being refused by the other store, they just happened to stop by ours too.
And that's when they offered to take down the rival store in exchange for money. His face turned regretful as he recalled those moments. David was frantic, fearing that the restaurant might not survive if things continued as they were. Fearful of losing the restaurant he built with a loan of $100,000, I could somewhat understand his desperation. Lisa must have felt the same. Both lost their cool and succumbed to the gangbanga's whispers. The gangbanga today can't just storm into places and wreak havoc, but they exerted pressure from behind the scenes and even sent thugs to truly take down the competition. They thought of it as a one-time deal, but once you engage with the gangbanga, cutting ties becomes difficult. The relationship continued, and David began giving a part of the restaurant's earnings to the gangbanga. You became defiant, paying the gangbanga to take care of various things, didn't you?
Sure, I had them pressure the surrounding stores to get rid of them.
So, you got rid of anyone who could stand against you in the area, creating David Empire, and got carried away, leading to the bar, right?
You know a lot. That bar was for overcharging, hosting important gangbanga guests, and strategizing their next moves.
That's why it was such a secluded hideaway bar. Around the time the bar was established, Lisa was under a lot of pressure, wasn't she? Not just with the restaurant, but also being forced into criminal activities.
We were in business together, so naturally, I had her help out.
But Lisa wanted out, right? She was suffering, being forced into crimes, and earning resentment from others.
She was paid well for her help. No reason for complaints, and I couldn't just let her leave, knowing what we were up to.
And you threatened her with harming her parents, or even me, to keep her in line. Talking to David made me feel nauseous. Though cornered, Lisa was at fault for turning to the gangbanga. But David, who got a taste for it and became reckless, was worse. It seems Lisa was coerced by David and the gangbanga into silence, leading to her tragic decision.
Now that you know everything, I can't let you go. You'll replace Lisa. Don't even think about talking to the police. You know what would happen if you did, right?
I thought maybe you were also trapped in your dealings with the gangbanga and struggling to break free. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case.
Huh? Money's rolling in. Why would I want to cut ties?
Hearing David's remarks, I sighed deeply. As if on cue, 2 police officers entered the room.
This is enough. It's dangerous, so please step back.
Yes,
What's this? You already called them.
yes. You came here to destroy evidence linking you and the gangbanga, right? Did you find any?
No, nothing came out. You came after me.
Lisa sent not just a letter but also evidence of your crimes with the gangbanga, like documents, photos, and a USB drive. Before coming here, I stopped by the police station. You were already under surveillance by the police. So, after explaining the situation and showing the evidence, the police decided to come here immediately. There are only 2 inside, but there are more officers outside, so you can't escape now.
So, I'm already cornered, huh?
That's right. As I mentioned earlier, I thought maybe you were just struggling with breaking ties with the gangbanga. So I convinced the police to give me a chance to persuade you to surrender voluntarily. But we had an agreement that if things seemed dangerous at any point, they would intervene. They came in because you started threatening me.
Why would Lisa send the evidence to you? It would only put you in danger.
Lisa had already decided to end her life. If she took the evidence to the police herself, she might get detained and unable to complete her intention. Sending it by mail, she wasn't sure if it would be thoroughly checked, and there was a chance it could be dismissed as a prank if inspected. So, she wrote in the letter that she wanted me to deliver the evidence to the police directly. You really drove my best friend to her limits.
Can you come with us to the station to talk more about this?
David, who had perhaps believed he wouldn't get caught, now seemed to grasp the reality of his situation as he heard the police speak, his anxiety becoming evident.
No, I was just deceived by the gangbanga. I did things, but I didn't want to, you know. It's my first offense, so it shouldn't count as a crime, right? I'll just go to the station, they'll hear me out, maybe give me a warning, And I'll be home soon, right?
The two officers grabbed David's arms and led him outside. He either resisted faintly or couldn't accept the reality, walking a bit slower than the officers. As David was placed into the patrol car, it drove away without blaring the siren. Subsequently, he was arrested and charged with crimes like extortion and blackmail related to the restaurant. He was also involved in fraud and illegal transactions, facing charges for those as well. Ultimately, even as a first offender, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison due to the sheer selfishness and severity of his crimes. The gangbanger members connected to David were also arrested, though it seems only the lower ranks were caught, and the core group remained untouched. While laws against organized crime are advancing, these groups still find loopholes, continuing a cat-and-mouse game. Nonetheless, with David and his accomplices behind bars, I believe my daughter and I are safe. Even if David is released, he's not a gangbanger member himself, so he shouldn't be able to harm us. If any gangbanger did come after us, their grudge would likely be directed at David for his failures. A move might be all that's needed for precaution. Naturally, I will divorce him. Even my in-laws plan to cut ties with him. So upon release, he will be alone. Without the restaurant and branded as a criminal, he'll have no credibility, support, or resources. He might even be pursued by the gangbanger for revenge. His future seems bleak, and he should spend it reflecting on his actions. It's tragic that my best friend took her own life. She had her faults, but she suffered immensely and ultimately saved my daughter and me. I expressed my gratitude at her grave and informed her of my completed move. My daughter is only 1 year old now. She is my sole purpose in life. I am determined to ensure her happiness, leaving my friend's resting place with this resolve: